Hello there, writer, and welcome back to the Well-Storied podcast. I am Kristen Kiefer, and this is where I translate articles from the Well-Storied blog into audio so you can listen in on the go. If you are looking to craft sensational novels and build your very best writing life, this is absolutely the podcast for you. As we often do on Mondays, I am diving back into the blog archives where I have updated an old article and I am now sharing it with you here on the podcast. So today's article was originally published on the blog on October 21st, 2016, and it's called Have You Created a Character or a Caricature? That's going to be so tricky for me to say all episode. I'm going to really work on my enunciation today. And so without any further ado, let's dive into today's episode. If you would like to read along as you listen in, make sure to head on over to well-storied.com/caricature. And that's something you may want to do, especially today with today's episode, because I break down a lot of questions that you can ask yourself to help build well-developed characters in today's episode. And so you may want to either write these questions down as you listen in, but it may help you if you have them right in front of you as well. So yes, without any further ado, let's get started. Have you created a character or a caricature? No one wants to read a story about characters who feel like imitations of the people they could have been. Characters should be well-rounded and fully developed. In other words, they should feel as real as the people around us. This is a topic we've discussed frequently here at Well-Storied, but strong characterization is just too vital to a story's success not to examine in every possible way. And so today, I'd like to approach the character creation process from a new angle. So writer, if you're ready to ditch paper-thin caricatures and half-hearted attempts at characterization, let's break down the 6 core questions you need to ask about your characters ASAP. Creating well-developed characters isn't easy, but it can be simple. By asking yourself just 6 questions, you can cut through the overwhelm of the characterization process and simplify your efforts to bring your characters to life. What are these 6 simple questions, you ask? Take a listen. They are who, what, why, how, where, and when. Okay, stick with me. You may be thinking that these questions are barely questions, and you're not wrong. These 6 inquiries aren't the characterization process themselves, but they are the foundations of that process. So how in the world can we use these questions to help us develop living, breathing characters? By defining a variety of deeper answers within these umbrella questions, we can easily ensure that we've covered all of our character creation bases. It's truly as simple as that. But what specific questions should we ask as we work to develop our characters? Let's take a look together. And this is where you probably want to head on over to today's transcript at well-storied.com/caricature to really check out these questions in depth. But let's read through them together now. Question number 1. Who is your character? When asking yourself this question, here are some additional questions you will want to ask. What is your character's name? How does their name ground them in their time period, reflect their heritage, or otherwise add context or importance to the story? What does your character look like? Do any of your character's physical attributes affect how they live or how they are treated by others? What was your character's upbringing like? How has your character's upbringing affected their present life and mindset? Who are your character's family members? Who has had the most influence on your character's life and how so? Who is your character closest to? What are those relationships like? Who does your character despise and why? What is your character's personality? How does your character's personality affect their interactions and lifestyle? What are some of your character's core beliefs? What makes your character happy, sad, angry, annoyed, and so on? And finally, what are your character's greatest hopes, fears, and regrets? On to question number 2, writer. What does your character want? Ask, is your character unhappy at the beginning of your story? Why are they unhappy or unsatisfied? What is their everyday life lacking? What does your character want more than anything in the world? What is holding your character back from working to achieve that desire? What event or change in circumstance would encourage or force your character to chase down that desire? What are your character's family members, friends, and or co-workers' opinions about your character's desire? Question number 3. Why does your character want their specific desire? Has your character always wanted this desire? Was your character forced or coerced into working toward this desire? What event or circumstance sparked your character's desire? Why does your character believe their desire will bring them happiness or satisfaction? And does anyone else benefit if your character achieves their desire? How so? Question number 4. How will your character achieve their desire? What steps will your character take to achieve their goal? Who will help your character achieve their desire? How will they help? What would make your character give up on their desire? What would make your character's helpers stop aiding them? What setbacks or challenges might your character face as they work toward their desire? What emotional or mental hurdles must your character overcome to achieve their desire? How might your character react to challenges and conflicts in their journey? How might tension form between your character and their helpers because of your character's desire or their method of achieving it? What will your character do if they do not achieve their desire? How might your character's failure affect their physical and or mental state? And finally, how might achieving their desire affect your character's physical or mental state? On to question number 5. Where will your character's journey take them? Where does your character live when their story begins? Why do they live in this place? What are some key physical and social markers of the place where your character lives? How does your character's living situation affect their happiness? Will the steps your character takes to achieve their desire lead them to new places? What are some key physical and social markers found in these new places? How will these new places expand your character's perspective and or worldview? How might these new places provide physical roadblocks your characters will have to overcome in order to achieve their desire? If your character stays in the same place while working to achieve their desire, how will their journey affect how they view their surroundings? And now at last we come to question number 6. When will your character be truly happy or satisfied? What does your character's idea of true happiness or satisfaction look like? If your character fulfills their desire, will they be truly happy or satisfied? If not, what does your character need to find true happiness or satisfaction? Might your character's idea of happiness or satisfaction change after they achieve their desire? Can your character find happiness or satisfaction if they do not achieve their desire? Will your character overcome their mental or emotional hurdles? And if so, how? And finally, how will your character's journey draw to a close? Whew. And so, writers, now we must ask ourselves one final question, and that is, what do these 6 questions tell us? 6 big questions and infinite tiny answers, and lots of brain-racking too. Is all of the hard work you'll put into answering these many questions actually worth the effort? In my experience, absolutely. From this simple if arduous process, you've learned who your character is, what their life is like, why they're unhappy in some way, and what they believe will bring them happiness. You've also begun to build your your story's plot, defining key areas of both external and internal conflict, as well as the relationships that will support or antagonize your character throughout their journey. If these 6 questions don't lend themselves to well-developed characters, I don't know what will, and I hope you feel the same. Do feel free to repeat this exercise for all of your story's primary and secondary characters. In doing so, I have no doubt you'll develop a full cast of characters that feels far from the paper-thin caricatures they could have been if you hadn't put in the hard work to bring them to life. Rich and compelling characters? Here we come. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Podcast Writers. I hope you enjoyed it, even though it was a little bit of a different format. I know this format might not have translated perfectly to the podcast, but I still wanted you guys to be aware of this article and to get some of the basic information about these 6 questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. I might have added an extra question there, but about how these questions can help us get to know our characters better. And so if you would like to really dive into this topic, make sure to head on over to today's transcript at well-storied.com/caricature, and I will leave that link for you in today's episode description. If you enjoyed this episode, do make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, give it a quick like, rating, and review, whatever you can do from wherever you're listening in from, as this field does go. Yes, this podcast is available not just on the well-storied website, but on iTunes, YouTube, and SoundCloud. So if you're not the biggest fan of the platform where you're currently listening in from, make sure to go and check it out on those other apps and other platforms. You can find the links for all of that also in today's episode description. And as well, anything you can do to rate, like, or review the podcast does help it gain extra visibility and continue to find some success with reaching new writers. So thank you very much for that. If you are really enjoying the podcast and you would like to help support it monetarily, I do have a Patreon account for Well-Storied. If you don't know, Patreon is simply a place where you can go and pledge a small monthly donation to support your favorite creators. And so if you're really, like I said, enjoying the podcast, enjoying all that I create for Well-Storied, make sure to head on over to patreon.com/Well-Storied, and you can pledge as little as $1 a month to help Well-Storied thrive. All right, writers, thank you so very much for listening to my spiel and for supporting all that Well-Storied has to offer, especially this podcast. That means a lot to me. I do hope you all have a wonderful week, and hopefully I will see you guys very soon. Happy writing! Bye!